To say I'm excited about this week's video would be an understatement. This week, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of my favorite human beings on the planet. Yes, you guessed it, Dr. Yoshi Rahm from Oasis Family Medicine in Glendale, California. I have known Dr. Yoshi for close to 10 years now, not only as my family's physician, but also as a colleague and a friend. And I've been around a lot of physicians in the last 20 years on my journey, not only for myself, but engaging with them in my practice in California and just all through the 20 years of working in the field of health and wellness. And I can honestly say there are not too many physicians that can rival this man's humility, heart, knowledge, and passion for empowering his clients to live their best life. He and his team at Oasis Family Medicine are truly dedicated to serving humanity in an exceptional way. I am thrilled to be able to share him with you, and I would advise you to get out a pen and paper because there's a lot of good stuff that's about to come your way. Enjoy. So I can't tell you how excited I am, Yosh, to do this little interview with you. I don't know if we're officially podcasters because we have these fancy mics in front of our faces. And
I think so.
Okay, great. So it's official, man.
Yeah. For sure.
But as I said in the intro, I openly will say that I love this man. I truly love Yoshi. He has had such a huge impact, not only on my family's life and my life and support, but so many people that I know that I've referred to the Oasis family. And it's just an absolute pleasure that you took the time to talk about how we can help more people in the world, man. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt, for hosting me and, all that right back at you.
Thanks, brother.
And happy birthday. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
Yeah, okay,
you have the recording.
I have to edit that out, but okay.
35 years old. You can edit that part in.
I'll keep that part in, yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're here to talk about is the best things we can be doing at different levels to build resiliency in the body. And this idea of resiliency is something that's kind of a major focus of mine this year, is to study resiliency and what I can do to build resiliency within myself, not just from a health standpoint, but mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, this idea of resilience. And so you and your team at Oasis are always at the cutting edge of supporting the body to do what it's designed to do, which is to defend itself, repair itself, regenerate itself, etc. And I'm going to borrow the definition from the HeartMath Institute of Resilience, just to kind of set the stage for our conversation today. But I just loved their definition. It's definitely a broad definition, but I just think it speaks directly to what we're here to talk about. And so HeartMath Institute defines resilience as the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, and adversity. And so what I love about this idea of resilience is it's not about trying not to meet challenge, adversity, and stress. It's not about trying to avoid it. It's putting ourselves in a position that when and if these things happen, we have a capacity to manage it. Not that we're looking to find it in the world, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously there's things we can do to be smart about it. We don't just run into traffic and say, I've built enough resiliency to take a hit from a car. Of course, that's not what we're talking about. But accepting like, hey, life has stress, challenges, and adversity in it in all the different ways. And obviously one of the predominant things right now in our world is viruses, bacterias, and colds and flus and all the things that are out there. So what we're going to do here with Dr. Yoshi is he's going to share us kind of what I would call his go-to most impactful, most influential ways to build resilience in the body. And 4 categories we're going to walk through. One is just lifestyle. So things that anybody can do theoretically. You don't need resources, et cetera. It's just things that literally anybody can implement. We're going to talk about the foods, or maybe a way of eating, or just some foods that you have found to help really support the body with the capacity to be resilient. Then we're going to talk about your favorite supplements, the ones that really get, bang for your buck, really seem to support the system in this way. And then I'm really excited for you to share some of the really incredible things that you and your team at Oasis are doing, we'll put them in the intervention category. That obviously requires some resource, and coming into a clinic like yours and doing some of the amazing things that you're doing with people with Ozone and other things. Super, super excited to talk about that. So ready to get started, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that? Does that sound?
No, it sounds brilliant. I love the idea of resiliency, because that, to me, that's so much of what life should be about, right? I'll speak for myself. I want to go out and enjoy life, right? And the more resilient I am, the more I am able to enjoy my life.
Amen, my friend. Extract all the life out of life is what I always say.
Right. Suck it dry. Yeah. And Matt, I know you're interviewing me for this, but you also know a lot. So, I'm not always correct, and I might leave something out. So I just invite you to pipe in or ask a question for sure.
Guys, I rest my case when you hear a doctor with the capacity that this man has even say what he just said to me. I rest my case. Okay, this is the kind of human that we're dealing with here. I don't know if you know this, Yoshi, but one of the ways that I describe you is I just say to people, yes, they make doctors like this. I don't have to say anything else, right? So again, just appreciate, as always, your openness and humility to explore further. So thank you for saying that. So category one, my man, lifestyle. Like, what would you say would be some of the most impactful things people could be looking at to just build resiliency in their body, put their body in the best position to extract the most out of life on an everyday basis, knowing that there's things out there that we need to be mindful of?
Yeah, so great question. And I actually break it. I know a top 3 is always lovely, but I have a top 8.
Okay, fine.
And it's, which one is the most important? It's kind of like, which child of mine do I love the most? I mean, obviously I have an answer, right? But I'm not going to say it out loud. I jest, but truly I break it down into, what I say is we got to eat right. And I know that's going to be kind of our next tier. We got to drink right. We got to poop right. We got to sleep right. We got to move right. We got to breathe right. We got to nature right. So be in nature, and then think right and speak right. And I know you're a big wheelhouse is the last couple there, the speak right and think right. So I don't think I don't need to go into that, but drinking right, first one on that list. Everybody's heard 8 glasses of water a day, right? Well, yes and no. Okay. First of all, most people are dehydrated. All right. So if all things being equal, yeah, go out, make sure you drink 8 glasses of water a day. But what I would say is, if you can make sure that water is structured water, you don't need 8 ounces of water a day, because really all you need to do is be hydrated. And when you drink structured water, and there's Gerald Pollack's The Fourth Phase of Water is a good resource. So I'm just going to kind of throw that out there. We're not going to go into everything that structured water really is, because that's a 5-hour discussion in and of itself. Okay. But again, Gerald Pollack's Fourth Phase of Water, I think it's called. Feel free to look it up, or at least read a little summary. But it's basically just what it sounds like, making water into a more structured form. And when we drink that type of water, it goes into our cells and it literally hydrates us at the cellular level. And there's biohacky ways of getting structured water. You can also just take clean filtered water, throw a little bit of Himalayan salt in there and set it into a glass jar ideally, and set it in the sun. That is going to structure the heck out of your water. No kidding. And if you can start your day off with like a glass or 2 of that first thing in the morning, you're hydrated. And you're probably hydrated for the rest of the day. Okay. Now, again, maybe somebody will need a 3rd or 4th or 5th glass of water, but you don't need 8 glasses of water that way.
So you're talking basically, we would say, quality over quantity here.
Yes.
Is that another way to think about it?
That's a great way to say it.
And so just to clarify, is there a ratio of the amount of Himalayan sea salt to water? So if I have, they'll say a 10 ounce glass or 8 ounce glass, are we putting a teaspoon in there, a half teaspoon, like
just throw in like a quarter teaspoon?
Okay.
Even an eighth of a teaspoon. It's not, that part of the equation is not even important. I mean, you could throw in 5 grains and that would be enough. 5 grains, dissolve it, and then let sunlight shine on it. And that's going to structure your water.
Interesting, man. So it's not necessarily about the saturation of the sea salt. It's about the impact those 3 variables have on water as the whole entity, so to speak.
Exactly. And it creates easier cellular communication.
Love it, man. This is awesome. I did not know. Okay, great.
Yeah. Please. So that's drink right.
Okay.
And we got poop right, which kind of goes with the food. You got to get that shit out of you. Okay. And so everyone has got to poop at least once a day. If you're not pooping once a day, something needs to be shifted.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Period. Okay.
I mean, the only time you shouldn't be pooping at least once a day is if you're maybe fasting,
okay,
which we can get into later. That's really the only excuse that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1 to 3 times a day, I would say.
Okay.
Kind of, and some people are really good with once a day. Some people really need that 3 times a day. So don't be too discerning between that. But
gotcha.
Gotta do it.
Got it. Yeah. And is there any? I know this could be a rabbit hole, but like what your poop looks like, clean poop, does it float up top? Does it sink? I mean, I know we don't need to go into this too much, but how much is there to that stuff? Because I know there's a lot.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. It should be formed, but not hard and crackly. So it should come out like, I mean, it really should look kind of like a banana, slightly softer, just in the sense that it can kind of form to the toilet without necessarily breaking. If it's harder than that and has a lot of cracks in it, that's really, you're constipated.
Okay. Does that coincide with dehydration?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
What we just talked about. Okay, cool.
Amen.
Great.
Yeah.
I wasn't really sure we were going to talk about our poop being like a ripe banana, but this is getting good already, man.
We got to. And then sleeping right. I mean, this is, if I were to pick a favorite child, this would probably be 1, 2, or 3.
You can't
sleep.
pick one, can you?
I still can't. And this goes back to there's not one best thing for everyone, right? It's meeting the person where they're at. And so somebody with these categories, I say, I'd love for you to get a grade of a B on all of these, right? We don't need to get an A or an A+ on every one of them. You are not a failure if you don't, right? But at the same time,
sure, man. Are you sure?
At the same time, though, we don't want to be average. We don't want to have C's. We do not want to be an average American person, because the average American is very, very unhealthy. Wow. But if we can just take this and kind of raise each of these categories, get a B, a B+, that would be wonderful. If you get an A or an A+, fantastic, but don't do it at the expense of stressing about it, right? Yes. And so the person who is getting a D or a C on their sleep or an F on their sleep, this is number 1.
Awesome.
Okay. And so sleep, I mean, when it comes to just resilience, immune system, I will just talk personally. I suck when I don't get a good night's sleep. And I think that's pretty obvious. Something that you will hear is got to get 8 hours of sleep. This is kind of goes back to the quality over quantity, though. Okay. You can get 6 hours if you're getting 6 hours of quality sleep, I would take that over 9 hours of poor quality sleep every day. Okay. So there's a lot of sleep trackers out there. Again, without getting too into the weeds on different devices, If you got good night's sleep. If you wake up and you feel well rested and mentally clear, you got a good night's sleep. You probably had quality. You don't need a device to tell you if you got good sleep.
Gotcha.
I think we're this day and age, especially with biohacking, and I love biohacking.
Sure. Who doesn't?
But at the same time, right? But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are relying on machines to tell them what they already know in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I've also seen it get in people's heads.
Big time.
The machine says I didn't do well, so I must not have.
Right.
It even goes to that extreme sometimes, I've seen.
Yes. Amen. So next one on the list, I would say move right. So a lot of people think of this as exercise. Exercise, but really it comes down to movement. And I break this into 4, sometimes I'll throw in a 5th category, but it's kind of, what I think of it is cardiovascular exercise, which I think is what most people think of as exercise, right? I went out for my hour-long walk, or I went for my run, right? I run 3 times a week, so I exercise enough. Well, that's one category, right? That's great for blood vessel health, for sure. Lung health, like it's very good, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. The other one would be flexibility, agility, and strength. I think hitting, and you got to hit all 4. I mean, if you want to live a healthy, vibrant, into old age life, you got to hit all 4 of those categories. And again, just speaking for myself, I kick butt on the cardiovascular. I do okay on strength. I probably get a C on flexibility, and my agility these last couple of years, oh my God, I'm probably failing or getting a D. Okay. I mean,
we'll pass you.
I suck. I suck at agility. I mean, I look at my kids and they're just springing off the floor, and not that I would expect an 80-year-old to do that, but you know what? We should be able to get up off the floor when we're 85 years old, right? And that sounds so mundane, but we should be able to do that. Sure. At 40 years old, I should be able to pick up my child and kind of throw them in the air, right? And
catch them or just throw them?
Just throw them. Okay, half of the time, I just want to throw them. And so again, it's cardiovascular, flexibility, agility, and strength. Another one I would just say, I'll throw in lymphatic movement. So sometimes that can just be like just sitting here kind of bouncing up and down. That gets the lymph flow, which sometimes if someone's in a hard physical situation, sometimes that's all that you can do, right? And so it's kind of knowing the timing of that, but getting the lymph flow, the lymphatic system it's kind of like a blood vessel system throughout our body, but it doesn't have any blood in it. But it's the way that our interstitial fluids really flow through us, and including it's largely responsible for our immune system as well. And so if we're lying in bed just barely moving at all, we're not even getting that lymphatic system or the immune system flowing. And so just pedaling your feet back and forth or standing up and just kind of bouncing on your feet like this, that alone is moving the lymph. Now, if you're doing those other forms of exercise, you're also moving the lymph. But again, in those harder times, sometimes just kind of focusing on moving the lymph is all you can do.
Now, I'm not sure if this is correct, but is one of the key elements to making sure lymphatic motion is happening. You talked about bouncing on your feet. That are the 2 key elements that are being addressed there. Is one, gravity, right? You're standing up, mm-hmm. You're not lying down, because I noticed that you said, hey, when you're lying down, it's harder for that lymphatic to flow. So being compressed and using gravity, but also is there something to the calf contraction as a pump to move things through? I know that the calf, the soleus, has been referred to as the second heart. Yeah, I know that is more for the cardiorespiratory system, but I was curious, as you were saying this, is that also a variable with the lymphatic system?
So yes, muscles, the more you use your muscles, that really is what pumps the lymphatic system. Okay. And actually, from just a purely lymphatic system standpoint, it probably flows better if you are horizontal.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't flow at all if you're not moving. So that was that. kind of example. If you're in bed feeling sick or chronic fatigue or depressed and you're really not moving, like you're not moving your lymphatic system.
So movement is the key.
The movement is the key.
Interesting that being horizontal. Can you speak to that? Because I just find that fascinating. What is it about the horizontal position that is better for the lymphatic system?
All the lymphatic system actually drains into us right here on our left, kind of right below our clavicle bone, into the veins there. And so if you're vertical, not moving, you know, the lymph is got to fight gravity.
Got you. Okay, so gravity is variable. I just had it backwards. Okay.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you turn yourself upside down, you know, yeah,
an option. Right.
So I think that's good on the movement front. I'll just say, you know, I just see so many elderly people, and it's like by the time we're 60, 70, 80, we're just kind of starting to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessary. We can be 90 years old, standing up straight, and also just able to get up and down off the floor, right?
Amen.
Next one, I mentioned breathe right. So I'm sure you talk a lot about this, but breath is just, it's so profound. And it's kind of both an unconscious movement as well as a conscious movement. And I don't know how, I'm going to just let you you do your thing on that. But it's super important. Okay.
Give us one little ditty on it, Yosh. Because I mean, this is a pretty large thing. If you have one, just.
Yeah. No, I would say simply be conscious.
Okay. Awesome.
Be conscious of your breath. If you're finding yourself not laughing, because when you laugh, you're breathing, right? If you're not laughing, just kind of tune in. How's my breathing? And if you're not, if you kind of find yourself holding your breath a little bit, well, then just breathe.
Awesome.
Just slow, calm breathing. So there's a bazillion different breathing techniques out there, but just be conscious of it.
I love it.
And one little simple thing to do, I would say, on the breathing front, so many people when they sleep, and this actually ties into the sleep category, so many people snore deeply or have a little bit of sleep apnea. Mouth taping is amazing.
Yes.
So I'll just 3M micropore medical tape. You can pick it up at a Walgreens or CVS type of places or buy it on Amazon. 3M micropore medical paper tape. Just put it over the mouth when you're sleeping, and it sounds kind of scary. Has never killed anybody, so you're good. But it teaches you to breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. When you breathe through your nose, you tend to balance out your autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic, your sympathetic, your kind of your rest, digest, or your fight or flight response systems. So it has a profound, well, on everything from mood to just your whole physiology. But it's a very simple, very cheap kind of hack to help your sleep. And what I would say is go easy. If for those of you out there who want to give this a try, just do it while you're awake, okay? Because it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, and it can actually initially bring up anxiety feelings. If you just slap a piece of tape on your mouth and try to go to sleep, you're going to be like, oh.
Don't use duct.
Don't use duct tape. Don't wrap it all the way around the head. Just something that can go like this. And it doesn't have to be airtight. I mean, I have a mustache and a beard. I do it when I'm being diligent, but it doesn't have to be airtight. Okay. Practice while you're awake, and then go easy on yourself the first time you put it on when you're going to sleep. If after a minute you're like, oh, this is too much, just take it off and give yourself a couple more practice days, and then try it again. And if at some point you got to wake up after an hour and you're kind of feeling a little bit anxious about it, just take it off, go easy, right? So it's you have to train yourself mentally to be able to handle it. From a physiologic standpoint, I mean, unless your nose is just completely plugged right in the middle of the cold, you can handle it. Anybody can handle it. So it's a very profound, simple technique.
Basically, the mind taps out before the body does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that happen ever? And then I'll throw out nature. So I say nature right. And I mean, this day and age, so many of us are stuck in cities and buildings, working all day in an office building with the synthetic light on us, not getting out into nature or hearing the sounds of nature, much less grounding in nature. And so it's just, it's simply get out in nature. And for those of you who have easy access to that, fantastic. I mean, Matt, go on the sand and water barefoot, like that grounds and just changes the whole electrical system of your body.
This morning, Yoshi, you'll be proud of me.
Yeah, nice. And, you know, a lot of people don't have access, right, to that. And so it's as simple as going to the little grassy patch on the side of the sidewalk and taking your feet out of your shoes and socks and putting them actually on the earth, on the grass, and just it electrically discharges you and balances you. So that's called grounding. The sound of nature. I mean, humans have evolved with nature. And so ideally you're going out in nature and hearing those natural sounds, right? But a little hack, if you're, you know, if you can't do that as often as you'd like, is listen to nature sounds, just like as ambient music or ambient sound. It kind of can trick our mind into relaxing. And then huge one that goes in the nature category is sunlight. Sunlight is so underappreciated in our society. It is insane. And it is so good for the immune system. It is so good for your resiliency. Now, I'm not talking getting sunburned. Sunburned is never good, right? But getting a healthy dose of sun, I mean, all the light spectrum comes from the sun. So UVA, UVB, UVC, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, infrared, far infrared. I mean, these infrared, far infrared, and the whole visible light spectrum, super, super healing. And they turn on your mitochondria. And we can talk more later about what mitochondria are. But it's dermatologists would have us slather sunscreen on all day, every day, and be happy if we never saw the sun. People are sicker who do that, plain and simple. Literature, science bears that out. So you got to get sun in a healthy way, never with a sunburn though. So if you're not used to the sun, just start with a few minutes and work your way up, add a minute or 2 or 3 each day. And your body's going to be able to handle the sunlight better that way.
2 things I want to ask you about that I've heard are significant when getting your dose of sun. 2 things that I was taught way back when was actually the importance of at times not wearing sunglasses. Obviously, you don't want to stare at the sun, but there is a benefit to the sunlight getting into your eyes. And what I remember is that it actually can be supportive to the thyroid. So that's one thing I'd love to hear your thoughts on. And the other thing is when you get exposure to sunlight, like making sure you're like taking your shirt off, getting it, like the significance of getting sun on your abdomen, especially I think with vitamin D. And so just this exposure to sun is if we're going to get best bang for our buck. I mean, we can go outside and have our sunglasses on and have our coats on, but maybe we're missing the benefit. So I was just curious, as you were talking, because those 2 things just kind of popped into my head. Is that something that you've also found to be helpful or valid?
Yeah. So you want to, it's great to do morning time sun gazing, it's called. Actually, just like for a few minutes, right as the sun rises over the horizon in the morning, you can actually look directly into the sun. Now,
that's when far red, that's more red light in the sunrise.
It's actually more blue light, but it's more red infrared light. And then it turns blue real quickly. Okay. And then during sunset, that's when we get the more orange and red light.
Gotcha.
And getting morning sunlight, especially into the eyes. Now, again, don't just go, like I'd suggest people read up on this. I don't want to make people blind. Staring straight into the sun in the middle of the day is like a horrible idea. Okay. But getting morning sunlight into our retina into the back of the eye without even glasses on, actually, even clear glasses, reading glasses. I'm not even talking just sunglasses here, especially sunglasses, but take glasses off, look into the sun for a couple minutes. And if you can't look into the sun or can't get it right at rise, right when it comes up, as soon as you can, or as soon as it's available, just go outside and just kind of look to the side of the sun a little bit. But basically getting light into the back of your eyeball resets your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm, I mean, goes back to sleep, right? And actually, people who do get adequate sunlight exposure into their eyes, it actually helps you sleep at night. So morning sunlight helps you sleep at night better.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, very profound yet so simple of an idea. The other thing you asked about was just body surface area. Yeah, body surface area.
Okay.
I mean, a couple times a week myself, I run without my shirt on, but then after that, I actually sit on the grass barefoot and take my shirt off, and I get that rays on the back and the front.
Gotcha.
That's the best way to get your vitamin D.
Awesome.
Bar none.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Amen. And then think right, speak right, and then we'll leave those to you. And then food. There's only one right diet, Matt.
That's what we're here to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you know, it's like going back to the favorite child. I can't tell you. So, yeah, on to food. There's so many diets out there. One time, just for fun, I named as many diets as I could, and like as quickly as I could, and I came up with, I think it was 23 different diets, just like within a minute and a half.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And so it's like the internet of dieting world, and it's just, where do you go? And you know, almost all of them have a large amount of truth to them, but they don't apply to everybody at that point in time. And so it's really knowing who you are, where you're at, just at the time you're at. And what I go back to is real food as often as possible. Right. I mean, to me, that just makes sense. And a lot of times when I'm thinking about medicine or healing, I should say, I try to go back to what our ancestors would have been exposed to or had access to in an ideal environment, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of poverty, still is a lot of poverty, but assuming you take poverty out of the equation, like, what does our natural world provide for us? And so to me, it just seems like eat real food, closer to living is best. And make sure it's organic and biodynamic. If you choose to eat meat, that is very important to eat the whole animal. So it's not just a meat thing. If you're eating just the muscle meat, yeah, you'll get protein, you'll get amino acids, but you're missing all of the other nutrients that an animal has to offer us. And so from nose to tail is sometimes what it's called. And it's got to be organic, grass-fed, raised. Unhealthy meat is horrible. So if you're not eating organic, grass-fed, biodynamic, regeneratively farmed type of meat, don't eat it. You're better off actually eating vegetarian at that meal, if you're not vegetarian or vegan already. So if you're going out to a restaurant with friends and it's not good quality meat, you're actually better going with the vegetarian options, is what I would
it's a great
kind of throw in there.
One of the best lines you said to me, Yoshi, when I first met you, and I still use this one today, is I asked you what your thoughts were on meat. And you said to me, Matt, it could be one of the best things you could eat. It could also be one of the worst things you can eat. Yeah, it's about the quality. And I thought I said it all right there. So that's
yeah. Amen. That's brilliant, if I do say so myself.
This guy really is good, man.
Another aspect I would say is intermittent fasting of some sort. So intermittent fasting, it's certainly gained a lot of popularity these last couple of years, I would say. It's really just the idea of not eating 24/7. That's really what it comes down to.
Hey, slow down, man. I grew up in an Italian house. What are you saying?
So we don't want to get up at 6 a.m., eat something, snack, have a lunch, eat dinner, and then have the after dinner snack, and then the after dinner snack at 10 p.m.
If my family's listening to this, I'm sorry.
And that actually brings up, jogging my a thought. Kids can handle a lot more food than adults.
Okay.
Once we get into adult, because we're growing, right?
So we can adulthood, please.
Yeah, it's a couple years from where we're at.
Okay,
for sure.
Cool.
For sure. Okay. High waistline. Yeah. So, kids are kind of when it comes to eating, it really quantity, it is a different situation. I'll just throw that out there. But back to the intermittent fasting, I think it's great if people are not eating for 12 hours a day. I think that's kind of a minimum. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What I'd love to see is no food for 14, 16 hours a day. And then some days, so you're basically putting your feeding window into 8 hours. Ideally, some days a week, you'd be squishing that feeding window to a 6 hour, and maybe even once or twice a week, squishing that into a 4 hour window. Now, caveats are, depending on how much you're exercising, more often might be necessary. Menstruating females need to be a little bit more careful about when and if they're fasting. For a menstruating female, that week kind of after the period stops, but before ovulation is the ideal time to fast. Okay. But again, I'm not talking about fasting for the whole week,
right?
Just doing that intermittent fasting a little bit more. This gives us, shrinking our feeding window down, gives us this idea of metabolic flexibility. And so again, kind of going back to our ancestors, humans are not made to always have food available. Right now, we're in this, like in the United States, at least, we're in this land of plenty. We can always go to the fridge or the cupboard and just pull something out and eat it. Now, I know, because when I get stressed, that's like one of the things I do. So I get you, people. I totally jive with
the number one way to self-regulate.
Yes, I'm good at it. So I get it. It's it takes practice and meaning to move the needle on that. But so important not to just reach for the cupboard when your emotions are off or not ideal. Yeah. What questions do you have on that front? Because the food and the eating, I mean, that's you can go so many ways with that.
No, I think you did a great job of like the broad strokes there, and just because you're right, this is a whole nother conversation that has many rabbit holes. But no, I loved it. I loved everything you said. So I got nothing, man. It was perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess that brings us to kind of this idea of supplementation. Thoughts?
Yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people come to our practice, Oasis Family Medicine, and they don't want to be on drugs, right? They want something more natural. And then we put them on this supplement and that supplement. And honestly, I'll just say, I'm guilty of it myself, is after a little bit, people are on this whole long list of supplements. And I don't actually think that's good. I don't think people should be on, it's like, it's much better to be on 20 supplements probably instead of 20 prescription medications. Sure. But it's still missing the mark of, really, again, doing everything we just talked about, getting a B, a B plus, maybe even an A in so many of those categories, and hitting the mark that way, so that we don't need a whole bunch of supplements. Now,
just to say, Yosh, that supplements should be supplements, not substitutes.
Amen. That's a great way of saying it. Love it. And, I also believe in objective data. So that's where, depending on your current health situation, actually testing these levels, these vitamin levels, these mineral levels, nutrient levels, can be really wonderful, because then you have some actual objective data. So it's not just some generic, oh, this is good, because you can go online and, you read about every good supplement that's healthy for you out there, and you're going to be taking 600 pills every day, right? Because it's good for you.
All you're really discovering is who can market the best from your Google search. That's
exactly
one thing that's occurring there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I will say, I kind of think of disease or illness as being really either too much toxins and or too much nutritional deficiencies, right? Yeah. If we have our nutritional status at a good level, we can actually handle a lot of toxins.
Resilient.
And that speaks to the resiliency. And a lot of toxins, in my mind, I'm including so many things as toxins. I'm talking emotional toxins. I'm talking heavy metals. I'm talking pesticides. I'm talking the air, all the chemicals in the air we breathe, in the ground, right? In our skincare products, going to the gas station, right? All of these things. Also, too many microbes. So a potentially pathogenic bacteria or a pathogenic virus, right? So all of those are toxins, but the better our nutritional status is, the more resilience we have in handling those toxins, because we live in the world, right? And it's a toxic world, but we can still live a vibrant life in this toxic world. And so I just want to throw that out there. And with that, I'll jump into a couple of recommendations, because
real quick, Yosh, before you go there, I just want to, what you just said, I think is so important. And it made me think of the fact that these toxins, as you define them, which was a very broad description of toxins, is this why if you search for something hard enough in somebody, you'll find it?
Yes.
Because
we live in the planet Earth. Exactly. And we are full of toxins.
Correct. And again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is kind of what I'm hearing, or how I'm interpreting this, is sometimes really searching for things and finding them, even though they may not be expressing themselves as a symptom, could that be more of a detriment than a help?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm kind of, there's a lot of, it's kind of like, who doesn't have heavy metal toxicity? If we test everybody for that, it's going to show up, right?
Well, this kind of mirrors a lot of what I used to find in my clinic when I was doing rehab on people. If you x-rayed enough people's backs, you'd find most people have some type of herniation.
Yeah.
It may or may not have anything to do with their low back pain, but because we found it, we tend to want to treat it.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And, on the virus front, who hasn't been exposed to mono during their teenage years, or so? It's like an EBV or Epstein-Barr virus is kind of the chronic version of that.
Yes. And
so who doesn't, if we test everybody for EBV, who doesn't have it? Right. Very few people don't have it. Mm-hmm. But then it's especially in the integrative medicine world, it's oh, we got to treat your EBV.
Yes.
Well, only if it's a problem, right? Because so many viruses live within us. We are more microbe than human cells. We have a pile of shit in us, in our intestines right now, 5 pounds of bacteria in us, right? And so, yes. So we want to be diligent about choosing what we're looking for, but also not putting our head in the sand, right? So it's it goes both ways. Yeah. So we do live in, our soils are more nutritionally deficient than they have ever been before. So the reality is most people do have deficiencies. Right. And that's where I would always prefer
people that are mindful of their eating.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
got
mean, it's very rare. I don't know if I mean, I live in LA, so we're doing a lot of testing with people around here. You know, I don't, maybe, and if people are living somewhere else really, really healthy, maybe
Yes.
they have better nutritional statuses, hopefully. But here I can tell you, I have not seen a perfect report yet. Right. And so that's where it's great knowing, okay, here's a couple of foods maybe I add into my diet, right? Because food as medicine should always be like the first source of nutrients, right? So food is medicine before supplements, okay? So again, those are my disclaimers on supplements, okay? With that being said, almost everybody is deficient in in a number of minerals. And so I love a really good multi-mineral. My favorite is something called quinton or quinton, quintessential
Yes.
sea minerals. It's
Yes.
super awesome
I
stuff.
just got those last time I was in LA at your clinic, my friend.
Yeah, it's like the best multi-mineral there is out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like our whole body needs it. So every physiologic reaction that's occurring needs adequate minerals. That is also structured minerals. So back to the structuring. So multi-mineral, but it doesn't have to be this quinton version. At the end of the day, just some multi-mineral is probably going to do the trick.
Is the trace mineral drops, and I'll put this stuff.
Yeah. Like concentrates.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's seriously a great one. It's going to be very, very hard to overdo it. I don't think I've seen anybody overdo it. I mean, keeping the serving in mind, right?
Not that we're challenging anybody, right?
Right. And then for those of you who are not eating organ meats, actually an organ meat based supplement is probably a really good idea. Because that has so many, it's like it's nature's best multivitamin. Okay, liver is kind of nature's best multivitamin.
I was going to say, I've heard that.
Yeah, so like desiccated liver, but it can be ideally mixed with a little bit of heart or kidneys. And sorry if it sounds gross, but this is how humans used to eat. And so simply by adding this in, it can really just get, instead of taking a vitamin A supplement and a vitamin D supplement and a vitamin K and, you know, a B12 and a B6, it's like, what food, okay, now this is food in a capsule, so I'd prefer it from food, but the reality is it can be hard to get it from food, right? So
one thing we've done, Yosh, on that note, and this is all Eve, my wife, of course, but she'll, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but she'll cook the liver, and then she'll chop it up into small little cubes and then freeze it, and then we'll throw it into our shakes.
Yeah, perfect.
So I found that to be great because I'm not a big liver fan.
Me neither.
Okay, great. And so she's like, I'm like, babe, how do I get this in there? And so she's like, we'll put it in little pellets, freeze it. So I'll throw it in my shake. And, you know, I got so much other stuff in there. I don't even realize it's there.
Yeah. I mean, you put in the whole can of soda in there too, or
of like course.
A cup of sugar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so that's great. Another one, actually, if you kind of get it ground up, and so if you're for those of you who do eat meat and you're doing a hamburger or something, like grinding it up, just getting a little bit into the muscle meat, that's also a great way. It actually kind of adds flavor without making it nasty. There's also liverwurst. Tends to be pretty nice.
They need to change the name for that. I'm sorry.
I agree. I'm with you. So yes, organ meats. So multi-mineral organ meats. And then I'm going to name 3 that everybody's heard of, but it'll be kind of with a twist. So from just an immune system standpoint, zinc. Okay, but it needs to be zinc. Everybody knows zinc, but it needs to be zinc with a little bit of copper in it for proper balance. Like everything in life, it's about balance. And copper and zinc, there's such a balance that happens with that.
Is there a particular brand, Yoshi, that you like that has like a good copper zinc balance?
Yeah, I believe actually one that people have access to, Life Extensions.
Okay, cool. Great.
Life Extensions is pretty available.
Perfect.
So a zinc with copper, that's from an immune system standpoint. Now, this is frankly one that I'd rather people get tested before just taking, though. Some people do not need extra zinc.
Okay.
But most people do.
Gotcha.
Okay. Our immune system, I mean, somebody can fact check me on this, but I feel like we make 10 million new white blood cells every minute. Okay. And zinc is one of the more important nutrients for our white blood cells to be made. And so you can imagine if we were even just a little bit deficient in zinc, what happens minute after minute of making our white blood cells that are supposed to protect us, right? Well, you can see real quickly what happens.
Compounding effect in the wrong direction there.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody knows zinc. Everybody's heard of zinc over the past couple of years, especially, but zinc with copper. The other one is vitamin D. Everybody's heard of vitamin D at this point, right? But I do not believe that we should be taking oral vitamin D. Our vitamin D should be made from the sun. Goes back to sunlight.
Yes.
Okay. Now, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So the human body is designed for the average person, again, this changes depending where in the world you are. But the average person will make vitamin D during the spring and summer months and then store it for the fall winter months. So it's not that you have to get the sun from a vitamin D standpoint every day of the year, because that's impossible for most or for many people, I'll say. But vitamin D stores in the body very well for at least 3 months, but upwards of 6 months. So it kind of makes sense. Make it in the spring and summer, and then your body will take you through. When just real briefly, laboratory values will want you between 30 and 100. Almost everybody I test is without supplementation or without light is probably between, say, 15 and 30.
Wow.
It's very rare that I see someone who's actually getting enough sunlight to make enough vitamin D. And vitamin D is profound when it comes to immune system. Yeah. So
it functions more like a hormone than a vitamin, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well said. So that's vitamin D, not as a pill, as a sunlight. Now, in a pinch, would I rather have you take a pill? Yeah, it's better than having a vitamin D level of 15.
Right.
Okay. And then vitamin C. I think everybody knows vitamin C. That's probably the most common, right? That's probably the first vitamin that we really learn about. But vitamin C is usually sold as ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid just happens to be only part of the vitamin C molecule. And like so many things, the whole operates at a whole different level when it's ingested into our body. And vitamin C actually is one of those things that our body does not make on its own. So we need to get it from exogenous sources. Now, food with vitamin C is way better than taking ascorbic acid. Okay. And so rose hips, like any supplement with rose hips or I don't know, all the citrus, camu has a lot of vitamin C in it. So vitamin C, but as the whole vitamin C molecule.
Got it.
I just want to like pound that into people, not as ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid should be used more like a medication in the middle of an illness. Okay. So that's fine. Yeah.
So it's more of a targeted approach, not a holistic.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'll leave it at that. There's a bazillion wonderful supplements out there. I prescribe them all day long, but that's a good baseline.
For sure. No, it was awesome, man. Great. Good. And then I guess we'll just kind of finish up here with just some of the things you guys are doing at your at Oasis, some of these interventions that I have just found fascinating, and I haven't had the pleasure of experiencing them all. I did get some of it last time I was out there, but I've had so many people engage with some of these things you guys are doing out there, and I know you're creating quite a stir out there as well, because people are kind of traveling to get some of these interventions to your clinic. And so I'd love to hear about just a couple of the things you're doing out there, especially when it comes to just, supporting and building resiliency in the body.
Yeah, happy to share. So I think first, though, I just want to mention real quickly, like kind of give a little shout out to saunas are amazing. Cold plunges are amazing. And everybody should have a nebulizer on hand.
Yes.
Nebulizers are way underappreciated. And when somebody's coming down with something, like having it already on hand so that you can nebulize something is a really good idea. Go get a nebulizer if you don't already have one.
What are you trying to say, Yosh?
Yeah, I don't know. And you can, there's a lot of things you can nebulize, from silver to hydrogen peroxide to glutathione to iodine to essential oils, the quinton, the minerals that I was mentioning. It doesn't even have to be quinton. It could just be a mineral, a saline, kind of a normal saline solution. So there's all kinds of things, but getting those in directly into the lungs is very, very healing. And if you catch a sickness right on the front end of that, it'll just neutralize it right away. So you don't have to go through all the rigmarole. And then, so wanted to give a shout out to those. And then I guess I'll talk about Ozone, because I love Ozone. It's what Matt, for those of you who are not familiar, it's what Matt's referring to. We do Ozone in our office. A lot of offices around the country do Ozone. I just did like an hour and a half long podcast yesterday all on Ozone and this process that we're doing here called O3D Energizer.
I'll link that in this thing, so people dive, they can do
cool.
So look for the link.
And I don't have, because it was just done yesterday, so I don't have that link yet.
If it's not there yet, it's because I don't have it yet. But
yeah, or you can link the podcast I did in December with Dr. Pompa too, so I can shoot that to you. Awesome. Because that gives a pretty good update. But anyway, so O3D Energizer, it's amazing. Boy, how to succinctly say this. So it's like ozone dialysis. It's blood coming out of one arm through a filter, which gives this huge surface area where we can expose your blood to ozone, to massive amounts of ozone, but in a nice low dose, so your body doesn't get overwhelmed or have a kind of a detox reaction, all while taking out inflammatory proteins. And then it gets put back into your body. And then we can also add on something called methylene blue with a bunch of different light therapies. And together, ozone plus methylene blue plus photons from all these light wavelengths, they basically, what they do, the whole purpose of doing this is to charge up the mitochondria. That's it. Right there. Mitochondria are the energy cells. They're like the batteries in your cells. And the more active tissues in your body have more mitochondria in them. So there's only red blood cells are the only cell in our entire body that actually doesn't have mitochondria, do not have mitochondria in them.
For the day.
But brain cells, so neurons, heart cells, and actually ovaries have tons, tens of thousands of mitochondria in each cell. And the whole reason we eat food, breathe air, i.e. oxygen, is so that the food can give electrons and the oxygen together kind of go into that furnace, i.e. the mitochondria, and spit out ATP, or energy. Really, it's energy at the end of the day. And when we add photons, preferably from sunlight, when we add photons in there, it speeds up that, it kind of pushes that production towards energy production. And when our body has enough energy, it knows how to heal.
The resources.
Resources. It's the currency of really everything in our body. And so we get the right nutritional levels of all those minerals and whatnot, and then get enough energy, and your body will heal. Plain and simply, your body will heal. Our body knows how to heal. We just sometimes have to get out of our own way and let it
get out of the body's way.
Yeah. And so doing all of those lifestyle things, the supplements, those are really awesome baselines. That's where everybody's baseline should be doing those. This O3D, it takes time, it takes money, it takes energy, it takes effort to do it. It's a fantastic treatment. I think it's one of the best therapies out there currently. And a number of doctors are trying to get me to teach it to them. So it's really cool stuff, but it's not a silver bullet, right? It's absolutely not. It doesn't cure everything. You got to do those basic things first. Got to. It's just
people.
Yeah. So
let me ask you.
Yeah, ask me.
In a perfect world,
assuming
you had the resources, and or let's just say it was free, didn't cost you anything or anyone else, and you're managing the other things, you're getting Bs, right? You're getting Bs in the other categories. Would you get this treatment once a year, once a quarter?
Probably once a quarter.
Once a quarter. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the last thing I just want to say, this has been amazing. I can't tell you how much I've learned, so thank you. If we were to put the lifestyle and foods, if we were to we'll put it in a pie graph of impact, would you say lifestyle and foods is 60% of the game, 70% of the game, 80% of the game, supplements, interventions? I'm just curious, where would you, I just think it's just to kind of wrap my head around and everybody else's head around that if I am not addressing these lifestyle variables, I'm basically negating 60% of the equation, and I'm putting all of this time into this place that can give me a 5% influence 5%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, none of these things are scientifically measured.
Yeah. I'd put the lifestyle things at 90%.
You would? Okay, interesting. Yeah. I kind of thought you were going to say that, but yeah. So everything else falls into that 10%, which I think is important for people to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we have such a tendency, and I'm so glad you said it at the end there, there's no magic bullet, there's no silver bullet here. The basics are still the basics. And so the lifestyle, the foods, I love it, 90% of the game. Yeah. So if you're failing any of those, subjects, that should be the place you put your focus first. And maybe you can use these other things as a way to bridge the gap, but they're not a substitute.
They're not a substitute. And kind of one caveat would be, okay, maybe somebody's really sick. Maybe somebody got Lyme, an acute Lyme infection, and it's kind of turned into a chronic, that can be a really tough situation. And I have seen people who are getting Bs, even As in all of those categories, and still sick, still symptomatic. That's something where doing something like the therapies that I've talked about, that can just be a game changer then, right? But again, you still, even in that situation, it's still about doing the basics.
Yes. Yeah. Those boxes are checked. These other things can help when there's kind of, we'll call it an extraneous circumstance, like a infection of some sort.
Yeah.
Amazing, my man. Thank you. If there's, you've given us so much. Is there anything else that you would just like to share with people, something you'd like them to know, some, little pearl of wisdom, anything else to just share to the millions of people that are going to be watching this?
Yeah. To all 36 million people out there, I just want to, this is your audience, so they're probably already in the mindset of working with that, what I call think right and speak right. That is so profound. And that it's like that in sleep and food. Those are just, they're so core. And so I glossed over those in this interview, right? Because we're speaking to your audience, but that aspect, I always remember, like, it was one of my first weeks in medical school, and it was like they showed how the immune system responded to a picture of a gun versus a picture of Mother Teresa. And within seconds, the immune system goes up, like in a good way, to seeing a picture of Mother Teresa. And conversely, when you see a picture of a gun, obviously represents violence in this particular study, immune system dips. And so that just has always stuck with me, because it was right like those first couple of weeks of medical school. And that's what anxiety, like that gun kind of anxiety, depressed mood, like those feelings, those emotions are very synonymous from an immune system standpoint with that gun. And so we can just change our physiology on a dime by elevating our mood, by elevating our thoughts, by elevating the people we're around, the energy we put out, elevating our vibration, right? And so I talked about all these other things, but at the end of the day, I could be getting an A+ on all of those. But if I'm not mentally here in a good space, raising the vibration for myself and offering that to others, then I mean, that's a huge chunk of our physiology, just coming at it straight from a physiologic standpoint. Like, that's everything. So, parting words.
So basically, watch the news more.
Yeah. You want, ooh, since you brought it up. So the worst two risk factors, for those of you who don't know, for death over the last couple of years from the virus that shall not be named, number 1, obesity, and number 2, anxiety. In other words, anxiety was the number 2 killer. Mm-hmm. Like, how does anxiety affect our immune system, right? In other words, those people who died from that virus, the number 2 risk factor was anxiety.
Wow.
I mean, that, with looking at how many people died, I mean, that should really drive home how profound the work that you're doing can be.
Yeah. Turn off the TV.
Yeah, turn it off, please. Please.
Amazing, Yosh. I can't tell you how thankful I am for your time, and I really think for the millions of people that are going to watch this, I know that a lot of people will benefit from this. And so if you have comments or anything you want to share here, I hope this isn't the last time we get to do this, man. I know when you and I can geek out about stuff, we can keep going. So as long as we have a container,
necessary.
Yes, it's necessary. But again, man, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing the wisdom you have with us, and hope to do this again someday, man.
Yeah, always learning. So thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.